Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
President Trump's special envoy to Ukraine arrived in Kyiv overnight. Keith Kellogg is expected to discuss security and also sanctions against Russia with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. And that meeting comes as President Trump says he will make a major announcement and statement today about Russia's war in Ukraine. News Nation's Tom Dempsey is live at the White House with more there. Tom, what are we expecting from the president today?
Hey, good morning, Mark, and good morning from the White House, where later today, President Donald Trump will be meeting directly with the NATO Secretary General. But this meeting all comes as President Trump has voiced a lot of frustration recently with Russian leader Vladimir Putin, and now the U.S. plans to send more weapons to Ukraine.
I haven't agreed on the number yet, but they're going to have some because they do need protection. But the European Union is paying for it. We're not paying anything for it, but we will send it. It'll be business for us, and we will send them Patriots, which they desperately need, because Putin really surprised a lot of people. He talks nice, and then he bombs everybody in the evening. So there's a little bit of a problem there, and I don't like it.
Now, that meeting here at the White House with the Secretary General comes after President Trump announced plans to sell weapons to NATO recently that can then be provided to Ukraine. The president has really pushed for this war in Europe to come to an end, but he has really grown annoyed with Putin for not doing enough to reach a ceasefire. So with that meeting happening later today here at the White House, we also know Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth will also be part of those talks. Marky?
Yeah, and Tom, you have a lot of people, a lot of lawmakers saying, we need to enact more severe sanctions on Russia. How quickly could Congress take up those new sanctions?
Yeah, it's not just the White House here that we're talking about the U.S. response. There's also legislation being discussed on Capitol Hill, and some Senate Republicans actually spoke to News Nation directly recently, saying a vote could come as soon as this week on a package of sanctions targeting Russia. Now, to dive into this a little bit further, legislation being worked on will focus on the Russian oil industry, and part of that plan involves a 500% tariff against countries that continue to buy Russian oil, gas, or other exports. Brazil, China, and India would be some of the hardest hit countries from that tariff. Part of this plan might also include tapping into some $300 billion in Russian assets frozen by some of the world's leading economies. All of this happening to try and bring about an end to the war still being fought in Europe, Marky.
Welcome back to More War Monday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, is a Russia-Ukraine war shift happening before our eyes? President Donald Trump has said he would make a major statement today about Russia's war in Ukraine, and he did when he met with the head of NATO this morning, as that clip alluded to. And you know what? He announced the U.S. will provide more weapons to Ukraine, but through NATO countries paying for them, as he, again, voiced his frustrations with Russian President Vladimir Putin on whether peace can be achieved now or sometime in the future. Well, the truth is, folks, Putin still holds all the cards, even with more weapons planned to be transferred to Ukraine, unless something changes the negotiating posture. The Russian armed forces continue to advance across territory in the Donbass region that they say they want as part of any peace deal. Unfortunately, the war is causing thousands more deaths every month that it continues, and there doesn't appear to be an end in sight without a negotiation breakthrough directly between the two belligerents. Well, L. Todd Wood joins me today to discuss the current situation. Todd's a former special operations pilot. He's the CEO of CDM Press. He's on a mission to report the truth, as America's free press should be, to protect our way of life. Of course, what they don't. So, Todd, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Rob, thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, it's my favorite show. I appreciate
it. I wish we had better news to talk about, though. When I talk about the Ukraine-Russia war, I would rather be talking about the peace progress.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that as we'll see as we go through the show, that it doesn't look like we're going to be realistically talking about peace for any time soon. As far as the situation on the battlefield, am I still right in what I said in my opening, Todd? You have people on the ground over there and have had for a long time. You watch this very closely. The Russians are still grinding it out. It may be centimeters every day, but they're still grinding it out, and the Ukrainians can't hold them back, right?
That is true. All along the front, the Russian armed forces are gaining territory. It is not a situation where Ukraine is really in a position to stop that in any significant way. There is a lot of corruption on the front, a lot of fortress type materials and fortifications that were supposed to be delivered and set up along that front, especially up in the Kherson area, were shown to be stolen, essentially, and nothing was done. Some holes were dug in the ground, but nothing that could be used effectively by the Ukrainian armed forces. This is a problem in Ukraine, is the continued corruption. Look, I just want to ask your audience, what does this do for America? That's the lens we need to be looking at all of this on. And I don't see how this, except for making money on weapons. Yeah, okay, we're going to sell some more weapons, but how does this help us? Does it help our national security? Does it help our peace? Does it help our children's future? Does it help the Ukrainians? I think the answer to all of that is no, to be honest, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Do you think that the narrative change, I hate to call it a narrative change because it implies bad faith, but I think there's good faith involved in this. However, the viewpoint change that the president's talked about this morning with that, hey, it's not costing the United States anything. The EU countries, if we ship anything from now on out, it's going to go to the EU countries. They're going to pay for it. And then the Ukrainians will get Patriots and the like from the EU countries or NATO countries. There's been both terminologies. I'm assuming the trade part is going to be through the EU since NATO is not really in the trade business. But do you think that perspective and point of view does us any good at all as America, as we've tried to end this war, and rightly so, as the president ran on, but really haven't been able to get it done yet?
Well, I wrote an article a few days ago, last week or so, that it's not Vladimir Putin or Volodymyr Zelensky that can end this war. It's Donald Trump. And Donald Trump can end this war tomorrow by saying we're no longer going to support Ukraine militarily. The war would end, the killing would stop. There would be some type of solution on the ground found pretty quickly, in my opinion, because what I hate, and I find it very dishonorable for Americans to be saying we're going to fight to the last Ukrainian. The only way there is any kind of win in Ukraine is full involvement of NATO on the ground, with ground troops, with air assets, with everything. And hopefully that's not going to happen. So what's the alternative? Is it just forever war? 25,000 Ukrainian soldiers, according to my sources, died in June. Just think of the just chaotic misery these people are undergoing. They're jerking kids off the street, sending them to the front, and they last a very short amount of time. And I don't see that as good for America in a moral sense, in a future relationship with the other half of the world. I see it as supporting a very narrow agenda of a very narrow group of people. And it's not what we voted for. I just don't see what the end game is, Rob. Maybe you have better insight than me, but I don't see how this helps us in the long run. All it does is continue the misery.
Yeah, I'll ask you. Here's when I first heard about it, I was like, well, how does that change anything from the peace through strength perspective and America First perspective that I voted for? That says that Europe's going to take care of Europe, And the United States, while we'll still support NATO, we're going to primarily focus on the Indo-Pacific, and the real adversary is build up our strength to deter China in that part of the world, which involves increasing shipbuilding both on the Navy side and the merchant marine sea lift side dramatically, which involves building more air bases so that we can have dispersal options that are more appropriate to surviving in that environment in the case of air and missile attack from the Chinese Communist Party forces, building more defensive weaponry for air-based defense and defensive weaponry that needs to go on our sea lift ships that currently are completely unarmed, by the way. American sea lift is completely unarmed and cannot operate in an opposed environment without direct military support. So how does that help us do that if we are continuing to send things like Patriot missiles, which we used, I think, 44 Patriots in the Middle East defending ourselves and Israel, and we used 25% of our theater high altitude air defense missile, the THAAD missile. It's my understanding in that. And we haven't improved our military and industrial production and manufacturing capability to the point where we can reproduce those in less than a couple of years. How does it help us?
There was a report out last week that we're down to 25% of the weapons we need to fight a prolonged conflict, as in Patriot missiles, THAAD, interceptors, all this artillery shells. Our stores are depleted, so we're sending more to Ukraine. This makes no sense. It's a big distraction from America First. It's not what I voted for. What if the cartels start launching drones across the border? What if the Chinese, start launching drones across the border, the southern border, or into Guam, as you said, in the Pacific? Or we can't defend ourselves. So why in the hell would we be sending missile interceptors to Ukraine for something that has no impact on U.S. national security when we are exposed, as you said, across the board? And these new sanctions. I mean, we can go into that. There's a lot to dig into here, but I just see this, unfortunately, as the crowd that was controlling the Biden regime is now controlling the Trump administration, and I don't like it at all.
Yeah, we're going to get into that and the congressional piece of it too, Todd. Staying on the resources available piece, am I right? Am I correct in my observation that the Europeans have not increased their manufacturing capability either for their weapons that they've been providing, and they're not capable of replacing what they've already given away to Ukraine? Even within 3 or 4 years, right? Is that correct?
I think you're right. I mean, it's very murky. We're not getting good information. It's a lot of propaganda. I did read a report that we're building like 300 Patriot interceptors this year, but the Army wants like 15,000, but it's not funded yet. Why are we providing the weapons that it should be Europe's war. If we have an alliance, they should be the ones in front. And the problem I have is that eventually, if you keep going down this route, it's going to be the 82nd Airborne is going to be over there as advisors. I mean, that is the end game, which they desperately want, and I desperately want to keep from happening. So I'm going to continue just being the loudest voice that this is bad for our security. It's bad for the Ukrainians. We've depopulated their country. They've gone from 42 million to less than 25 million. Their male population's getting decimated. They lost 25,000 troops in June alone, according to my sources. And it's horrific what we're doing to those people. You saw the cheering where the Russians were targeting some of the mobilization units where they're actually bounty hunters, where they're pulling men off the streets, putting them in the van. They never see their family again. It rips apart the families. The children don't get to say goodbye to their dad or their brother or their son or their mothers. And, they get a number back of a body. And the Ukrainians were cheering the Russians targeting the mobilization centers because this is horrific. I'll use that word again, what we're doing to the Ukrainian people. I find it dishonorable, frankly. that we're still supporting this. And at some point, I'd like to go into what they're doing to Christianity, as in the government in Ukraine, the type of people that are in this government, and what they're supporting. It's not a good thing.
Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we can talk about that in the next segment, and we'll hear a little clip from Senator Tom Cotton. And he's talking about peace through strength, but I'm not sure I understand exactly if it's the same peace through strength activity that I'm familiar with. We'll be right back with L. Todd Wood of CDM Press on More War Monday.
It doesn't seem that Vladimir Putin wants peace, because he continues these attacks on civilian targets in Ukraine, to say nothing of the attacks and the grinding war in the east of Ukraine. I wouldn't say that President Trump has been playing nice with Putin. He's been trying since he came to office to put an end to this war. I think we all know, given the battlefield realities, that it's going to end in some kind of negotiated peace. That's because Joe Biden first tempted Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine again, as he invaded Ukraine the first time when Barack Obama was president, not when Donald Trump was president, I would note. And then he continued to slowly provide weapons to Ukraine, not in a way that wasn't designed to help Ukraine win 2 and 3 years ago, but just prevent them from losing while Joe Biden was still president. So President Trump has given Vladimir Putin numerous occasions to try to reach a ceasefire. I think what's been demonstrated now to the world is that Vladimir Putin at least has no interest at the moment in a ceasefire. The way to make progress is what President Trump has done time and again, what you saw him do last month with Iran, is peace through strength, to make it clear to Vladimir Putin that he has more to lose on the battlefield in Ukraine than he has to lose at the negotiating table.
Welcome back to More War Monday here on the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And my guest today is former Special Operations helicopter pilot and president and CEO of CDM Press, L. Todd Wood. And Todd, the last part of that clip there from Senator Cotton really concerns me, and I believe shows a little bit of the window open that I was concerned was going to open with the Iran attacks, and that is he's equating peace through strength with the president bombing Russia like he did Iran. I mean, that's what I think I heard there. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did hear that. And again, that's what I mentioned in the first segment, is they want American involvement in this war. And that's World War III, folks. We're already to the point where Germany is talking about providing these long-range cruise missiles, the Taurus, that can strike deep into Russia with significant payloads, even nuclear. And Russia's saying, okay, well, now Berlin's a target. So we're already at that edge. And that's what they want. They want Russia to attack so that they can destroy Russia with nuclear weapons, I think. I mean, at least a part of this wants that. Now, Cotton did mention something, which that's the first time I didn't hear that interview, but he mentioned that Biden provoked Putin to invade. That is true. That's the first time I've heard somebody in the deep states, and I consider Cotton kind of a mouthpiece of maybe not the deep state, but the military industrial complex, because he's definitely on that forever war spectrum. But that's the first time I've heard someone in his position mention that the U.S. and the Biden administration provoked this second phase of the war that started in 2022 by Kamala Harris going to I think it was the Munich Security Conference, and saying Ukraine's going to join NATO. That was a red line for Putin. Everybody knew it was a red line. And so that is interesting. I found that he would admit that. So then if he's admitting that, then this is our war. So why are we, getting involved in a more broad conflict, in a conflict that we started? I think we have some moral culpability here that we need to say, hey, well, this was wrong. We're going to end it. Let's stop killing the young kids. What are we going to wait another 6 months? Another 150, 300,000 kids die? I find it dishonorable, Rob.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. I didn't pick up on that. I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm going to go back and listen to that clip again after the show's over to make sure I understand what he was saying correctly, because that would be interesting. And we do have culpability on this. The United States has culpability on this. You know that. I know that. And the lamestream media will not report on it, and they will attack you, and they will attack me. And now that President Trump has shifted to this new policy, here's why I'm concerned about that last part of that clip even more than I was before I heard him say it. And that is, in the statement today, he said something to the effect, the president did, that we're going to give them 50 days to come to peace before we implement more tariffs and sanctions, I believe. I didn't hear the entire sentence when he said it, but I heard the 50-day part. And that's eerily similar to the 60 days that he gave to Iran.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're bringing up a good point I didn't even think of. I mean, that is frightening. And I always say that you don't have to agree with Putin's actions, but you need to understand why they're doing what they're doing. Otherwise, you're operating in a vacuum and you don't really understand the follow-on cascades of consequences that can happen. And if you understand Russian history or the history of that region, that has always been a Russian sphere of influence. And for us to say that's going to be part of NATO was just a complete provocation. But even that, even beyond that, if you look at history and understand World War II, for instance, what happened the last time we cut off or messed with an economy's oil supply? I mean, we had Pearl Harbor, right? I mean, so the history is rhyming here, and it's not good. And I'm going to do personally, our network's going to do everything we can do to just call out the truth here and hold fast to it. And hopefully some people will listen. Yeah.
And just so people know that I'm not hand-wringing, folks. Look, I've been in this war business since I was 17, and my dad was in it before that. So I kind of grew up in this stuff a little bit. And one of the reports that I'm seeing consistently is about this buildup of 675,000-ish troops outside of the border, or at least on the Russian side of the lines, but out of the kill zone, basically. By the Russian army. Are you hearing or able to confirm that set of facts? Because that makes a difference in what we think Vladimir Putin's capable of doing.
That's been reported. My sources are saying, that's true, that there is a buildup that could be used as a big push. And I think Putin, at least was reported to have said to Trump in the last call, I think it was July 3rd, that he was going to accelerate the next 60 days to get the kind of gains in the war on the ground that he wanted. That would make sense. It would be part of that. I think Putin has an agenda of territory that he wants to take. He doesn't want all of Ukraine. They don't want West Ukraine. That is, the Galicia, that is the whole Nazi, area which connected with Poland. I mean, they don't want that area. They do want the East. They want the resources, and where that line in his mind is a little up in the air. But this is Trump's war now. I mean, you could have said a month ago it was Biden's war, but now it's Trump's war. He's entering the fray. He's providing weapons, and it makes us belligerents.
Do you think that his efforts will sway Putin's mindset at all, or have an impact on his thinking any differently than what he's doing now?
No, I don't. I think people need to realize if Putin does not, collapses here and looks weak in front of Trump, he's got a whole array of oligarchs behind him that will remove him from power. That is just a simple fact. So you have to keep that in mind. This is not just Vladimir Putin doing this. This is a whole Russian oligarchy. You know, in the past they called it the oprichnia, the people that kept the king in power but could remove him at will. And that is what you're seeing here. And they want something out of this. They see the West is threatening Russia over and over and over again. So they're going to build a buffer zone. They want a buffer zone. And that, I think, is what they're trying to. And they also want to protect the Russian speakers in the Donbass region. That's their goals. And they also want a neutral country in Kiev. So I think there's a deal to be made. But unfortunately, I don't think Putin is not doing what Trump wants, but Zelensky is not Mr. Peace either. I mean, they could say, look, we'll be neutral. Let's call it here. You know, we won't pull NATO troops in. We will, stop some of the Nazi propaganda. We'll let Russians speak Russians if they want in country. There's a lot of things that could be done, but I don't think Zelensky wants peace either, because he's supported by people who are telling him not to stop in the U.S. government.
Yeah, I agree with you. And quite frankly, they're trying to flip the script so it looks like he wants peace as opposed to Putin based on the current situation. And when I say they, I'm talking about the media, the NATO propagandists, the Western U.S. propagandists that are pro USA getting into this war ever and ever deeper. But it shouldn't work on those folks that have been observing this the entire time and understand the facts and the underlying truth behind it. But I'm just wondering, now that the president's more on board with the Tom Cottons and Lindsey Grahams of the world, or what appears so anyway, that a lot of his supporters are going to go with him and say, you know, kind of like on the Epstein thing, hey, it's time to stop talking about this. Let the man get down to business. We trust him. But, you know, this is at the end of this 50-day thing that we're talking about. This is not some quasi third world mullah-run country with F-14 Tomcats that have been duct taped together and only a partially sophisticated Russian integrated air defense system. That the latest thing they've shot down is a civilian airliner at night when they were under attack. That's not the type of country we're talking about here. And you talk about sending B-2s on a one-time strike into Moscow or around Moscow. That's a totally different deal from my perspective. Yours, Todd?
I don't even want to go there. Unfortunately, you know, that specter is being raised. I think the Atlanticists, or whatever this faction is in our government, wants a regime change in Moscow. They think that they can do this and then take the resources, and I even think there's a spiritual component of this, because if you get into what's happening with the attacks on Christianity, the support of satanic occult rituals in country, the support of, you know, a lot of alternative sexual practices, let's say, I just see this as a real battle. I'm not saying Russia is perfect, but I'm saying they want control of that because they can't control it now. That's just a simple fact, in my opinion.
Yeah. So how much the Ukrainians pushed back hard in the peace talks the last time about the territory that the Russians say they wanted, because I guess some of it they don't occupy right now. But there's not a whole lot more to that, is there?
I don't think so.
What they're asking for?
Yeah, I don't know what's in Putin's head. I mean, they've got Luhansk and Donetsk, essentially. They've got Crimea. So the question is, what more do they want? Zaporizhia or one of the Sumy region up in the north? Well, I don't know what they are looking for. Putin obviously has a number in mind. So again, there's a deal there. What's the deal, right? I mean, maybe Trump doesn't want to look weak in the face of this and this negotiations, but so what? We're going to fight a war and kill a bunch of more kids because Trump's ego or our need to not look weak. I just don't think this should ever been. I've been writing about this since 2014. I spent a lot of time over there. I saw how corrupt the government was. I mean, they went after Trump out of Kiev with the gentleman who was running his campaign with the Black Book. I forget his name now, but
Manafort.
they created the
Manafort.
Black Ledger against Manafort. I busted that out when I
Mm.
was writing for the Washington Times. That was all fake. That was run out of Ukraine. The corruption is off the charts, and I'm not just saying corruption where you pay for a park, pay a cop off. I'm talking all this money we're sending over there is getting refaceted, reimagined into their pockets, and it's not a regime we want to support. They're not helping the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian people are miserable. So why do this? What is the gain here, except for the military-industrial conflict, except for some kind of goal that whatever this deep state entity is that has there?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the Christianity thing and the recruiting, and then what you know about the numbers on casualties on the Russian side too, because there's just so much disinformation out there and propaganda about it. I want to see if we can get some facts on the table. We'll be right back with L. Todd Wood here on the Rob Maness Show.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
But the game regarding Putin's invasion of Russia is about to change. I expect in the coming days you will see weapons flowing at a record level to help Ukraine defend themselves. I expect in the coming days that there will be tariffs and sanctions available to President Trump he's never had before. I expect in the coming days more support from Europe regarding their efforts to help Ukraine. Putin made a miscalculation here. For 6 months, President Trump tried to entice Putin to the table. The attacks have gone up, not down. One of the biggest miscalculations Putin has made is to play Trump. And you just watch. In the coming days and weeks, there's going to be a massive effort to get Putin to the table. And to those who are helping him, China buying cheap Russian oil and having no accountability, those days are about over.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're talking the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the latest updates as of just an hour before the show started today as to what's going on from the perspective of the United States' role in this war, NATO's role, the European Union's role, and that man right there, Senator Lindsey Graham. He sounds just a little bit too excited and happy. And my guest today is L. Todd Wood, the CEO of CDM Press, a former helicopter pilot in the Air Force Special Operations, and has spent some time in Ukraine, has people and sources on the ground inside Ukraine, and really is our go-to source for reliable information, as much as you can get in a war like this, on this Ukraine and Russia war. And Todd, in the last segment, you talked about this attack on Christianity inside Ukraine, and how that's setting up to make it look like, and we know that Vladimir Putin's not a good guy, but he has talked the talk about protecting Christians and those kind of things, and it's kind of setting up a conflict within the conflict based on religion. Tell us more about that.
Well, I've interviewed the attorney for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church many times, Bob Amsterdam out of London, and I can get him on your show if you want. But it is, this is a 1,000-year-old church. 90+% of the Ukrainians belong to this church. So the Ukrainian or government has come in and said, just like the Chinese Communist Party did, by the way, okay, we'll let you have a Christian church, but it has to be state sponsored. So we're going to destroy this Christian church. It's 1,000 years old. We're going to burn the churches. We're going to steal the churches. We're going to beat the priests. We're going to arrest anyone who opposes us. We'll put them in jail and give them harsh treatment. Even if they're sick, we'll, force them to die, essentially. That's going on right now. You have parishes meeting in the woods because they're scared to meet in their church and be arrested. You have last week, a few days ago, a bunch of Nazis that were dressed as war veterans, invalids in wheelchairs, get pushed into one of the cathedrals. They get inside the door, they rip their, blankets off, and they go beat the priests. Literally, there's video. You can find it online. Just search for it on X of them running after the priests, beating them, pulverizing them. It's not a good situation. And this is being enabled by elements within the U.S. government. So you have elements of the U.S. government destroying 1,000-year-old Christian church in Ukraine. I find that disgusting. Of course, they use the excuse, well, they're Russians. Well, it's the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They split off from the Russian Orthodox Church decades ago. There is no formal connection. It's simply not controlled by the government, it's not controlled by the government, so they want to control it. So they've started this Orthodox Church of Ukraine, the OCU, which nobody goes to. They have icons not of Jesus, but of like the Maidan Revolution and all this kind of stuff. It's so CCP, communist, Marxist, Soviet, essentially, that anyone with a thinking brain or intellectual honesty will see that this is an attack on Christianity. They're going in the tunnels of the catacombs under the monasteries and disturbing the relics of saints that are 1,000 years old. Why would you do that? I can only see this as an attack on Christianity. And if you look at the kind of behavior, you can find the videos of Zelensky dancing around, naked with his boys and, rolling his tongue to other guys. And you can find him, the stories of him appointing Maria Abramovic, the spirit cooker, which is a cult ritual developed by Aleister Crowley, the Satanist. That's the kind of people he's making ambassadors in Ukraine. So this is an attack on Christianity. It's a simple fact. So you can't get away from that. So why are we supporting that? So all you people out there that say, oh, we have to support Ukraine. Well, guess what? You're supporting a God, but it's not the one that's in the Bible, or at least, it's another God, and it's not good.
Yeah, and that opens up the door to making Vladimir Putin the savior of Christians in there. And the Ukrainian Orthodox population, the Orthodox, which church is the right one? The Ukraine Orthodox Church?
The Ukrainian Orthodox Church is the 1,000-year-old church where everybody's been married, baptized their children in, the whole thing. There's videos you can find of thousands of people being locked out of their churches singing hymns out in the street. I mean, it's not hidden.
Yeah. It just makes it to where Vladimir Putin can be their savior, and that doesn't help their war effort whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense. Are there Christian leaders in the United States saying anything about this?
I haven't found anyone, and the attorney's Jewish in London. So there you go. I mean, at least he has the guts to stand up for this, and I've had him on many times, and the hits keep coming. I mean, every time I see a new video of Ukrainian stormtroopers going down into the catacombs and messing with the saints' bodies, I mean, what is the purpose of that? There is no purpose other than to destroy the history and the religion and something people really, in a time of war. I mean, in a time of war, if there's ever a time where you needed spiritual comfort, it would be now. So why would you take that from the Ukrainian people? Intentionally. Anyway, I could go on this all day, but I'll be quiet.
It seems against the laws of war too to have to attack churches and religious leaders, whether they're internal to your country or external to your country. If they were targeting those guys with weapons, military weapons, and airstrikes, they'd be being accused of war crimes. And this sounds a little bit like a war crime. We got a question from the audience. Let's go over to Shell over there and take that question. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. And
Thank you, Mr. Woods. I would like to know, since there's a lot of people champing at the bit to get us into a war with Russia, how does BRICS play into this? How many of the BRICS members? Yes, I know it's purely an economic alliance, but how many of those people, how many of those members could also be encouraged and persuaded to participate in a war against us?
Well, let's look at Iran. You have Russians buying weapons from Iran, drone technology. They have economic oil supply agreements. And China is funding Iran and supplying Iran with air defense. They're rebuilding their air defenses right now. So I think that answers your question. The two of the big players, Brazil, I don't know. I mean, the people don't support that government at all, and they don't have the tyranny, the repression system set up as much as they do in Iran and in China to force the people to do what they want. But two of the big players right there could easily get involved and support Russia in any conflict against the United States. And that's the fear that it would, and that's what they're trying to do, in my opinion, is cascade this into something much bigger. As you mentioned, Rob, the bombing of Moscow. I mean, that's just, if that happens, I mean, that kiss it goodbye at that point.
I mean, even if they didn't bomb Moscow and they just went after strategic military targets, the drone attacks on the strategic bomber bases, those are nuclear bomber bases where there are nuclear weapons, folks. Don't rest assured, there are nuclear weapons there at those installations. I'm sure of it, or those bombers wouldn't be there. And how dangerous that was for that move. Some people argue, well, the United States, there's no way we would have approved that operation. Well, okay, even if we didn't approve that operation, we helped them with the targeting and the intelligence, and they did a crazy move with it. That's, I don't want to be hand-wringing about it, but there are some real risks here that should be made, the public needs to be made aware of here in the United States. It's just not a go in and bomb a target, and Vladimir Putin and the Russian armed forces and the Russian people are going to drop to their knees and say, "Oh, you hurt us," kind of like what the Iranians have done, not verbally, but in effect, they've been brought to their knees. That is not what's ever going to happen here. If this comes to a situation where the United States is talked into doing an attack on behalf of Ukraine on some strategic target set, there is no way that this battlefield will be prepared like the Israeli Defense Forces prepared the battlefield in Iran. At this point, I see no signs of that kind of capability being brought to bear, or that Russia would be helpless like the Iranians were helpless. I mean, that was a dramatically effective takedown of the air defense system and the defenses of Iran in that 12-day war. But is that possible to happen in Russia? Not with just the Ukrainians, that's for sure.
Well, people need to realize the Iranians don't support their leadership. I mean, I'm very close to the Iranian resistance, as I think you are as well. And the Iranian people don't support that government. So that's one facet. The Russians do. The Russians, it's kind of like, if you get married and you're getting divorced, you can say anything, anybody can say anything about your wife's family, but if you say something, it's really a problem, right? So this is, if you say something about the Russian people can say all they want and criticize our government, but if the United States starts attacking Russia, the Russian people will come to the aid of the motherland and fight to the death. I mean, that's just history. It's happened over and over and over again. And the Russian people, I can tell you, are very united right now. They don't have a problem with mobilization. There's a lot of kids signing up, and they have a lot more people, and they don't have the problems that Iran does as far as a populist, support for the government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly right, Todd. Well, we got to take our last break. When we come back, I want to talk about what Congress might do, since it was brought up in the opening thing. We'll see a little clip from Matt Gaetz and a congressman because they're talking about it this week too. We'll be right back with L. Todd Wood on More War Monday.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
So as Congress returns, you're going to go about the business of taking up some of these individual appropriations bills. Pardon me for thinking that's a little performative and thinking you're on your way to a continuing resolution. Either way. Yeah, I know. You're a truth teller. You're not part of the grift there. But in that process, there are going to be some key votes. For example, there'll be a vote on the defense appropriations bill on the extent of the funding for Ukraine. Where do you think a majority of Republicans in Congress are on the question of whether or not we should continue to fund the war between Russia and Ukraine?
You know, you've served with me along with a lot of the same members. I would say, and I'd love to hear your input, but I think that probably the majority, probably a slim majority of the Republican Party would support that. Wow. There's been some of us. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise to you. You serve with these people. There's a lot of our conference that loves wars and they love funding wars, but I think that there's a strong contingent that will fight that.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and the winds have shifted. The policy is shifting. The president announced it today in his meeting with the head of NATO, the Secretary General of NATO, just hours ago, about how the United States is now not going to be spending our money to provide weapons, but will provide weapons to EU countries who will provide weapons to Ukraine. And it's not just defensive weapons either, folks. I haven't brought that up specifically, but there's more to it than just Patriot missiles. In some cases, we're talking about medium-range ballistic missile capabilities that could reach far into Russia beyond the 200 kilometers that the limits had previously been placed on. And my guest today is L. Todd Wood, former Special Operations helicopter pilot, knows the ground well in this part of the world, and runs CDM Press, who has sources on the ground in the war zone and around this area, so we can get accurate reporting from it. And Todd, Congress is going to be talking about this, and the president mentioned it in his meeting, and so did the Secretary General, about potentially 500% tariffs on those that sell oil and gas and other things to Russia, vis-a-vis, aka China, and those kind of countries, and 500% tariffs on countries that support them, like North Korea, and those kind of places. What do you think they're really going to do in Congress, if anything? They're kind of feckless, really.
Well, I think they might vote for something that Trump has the capability to impose these tariffs if he wants. But, I have this. Didn't we just have an election? I mean, didn't we just vote to not do this? This is Trump becoming Biden. You can see the morphing going on TV. I mean, to me, it's insane. I mean, we do not. This is reckless in my view, and it may be a negotiation ploy, but I just don't see anything good coming out of this. What is the end game? If they said, okay, you know what, I would rather them say we're going to deploy NATO and stop Russians' advance and be honest about it than this. It's like Vietnam syndrome, right? Okay, we're going to send another 5,000 guys. We're going to do a little more here. We're going to do a little more here. Either do it or don't. I don't want us involved in another war, but stop this incremental escalation that will do nothing but delay the war. Maybe that's the goal. As they said in 1984, it's not to win the war, it's just the war. They want the war and the war and more war, as the title of your show. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for the human beings out there that have never participated in war, and many of them are in our Congress and in the halls of the White House and Senate, and on those staffs, not all of them, but many, the majority of those folks haven't seen war. They don't have it. They act like, and they message that they think that they can control it. And that's the drumbeat that I've been on this whole time, is that once you open the war box, just ask Iran about what happened to their proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas and the EIJ and the Houthis, and now to Iran itself. Once you open that war box, you cannot control this. And people may think they can control it, but you cannot control it. And this is a totally different animal than what we're talking about, than what the United States faced in supporting Israel and defending our troops that are deployed in the Middle East and helping our allies in the Middle East. It's a completely different animal with a whole different set of calculations or miscalculations that could lead to much more disastrous consequences, unintended or not.
Well, I'm comforted by the fact that all the Trump children of military age are now enlisting in the U.S. Army to go fight in Ukraine, including Barron Trump. I find that very comforting, that at least they're putting skin in the game. Well, maybe not, but that's what needs to happen. And all the members of Congress that have children of military fighting age should also join up and get some skin in the game, because you know what? We don't want our boys and girls over there. And I fear, as you said, that may be the direction. I know it's the direction they want to go, but they have to find a path where the U.S. people, American people, will support it. And hopefully we won't, but we'll see.
Well, can I ask you to speculate? I mean, we don't know what the purpose is, because we, as military professionals that are war college trained, air command and staff college trained, staffer experienced, and those kinds of things, I can't see a valid strategic end state for the United States, or even for NATO here, but I'll just speak from a United States perspective. What do you think is the true desired end state on behalf of those that are pro getting us more deeply involved and embedded in it?
Well, to go down the rabbit hole, I think that there is a push to destroy Russia, to gain land, to gain resources for an oligarchy that they want to establish. That's what I think. And there's also an ethnic part of this. A lot of the people pushing this war and were the architects of this war, their families were from, West Ukraine. Victoria Nuland, Blinken, others are from that area. There is a history of the Banderites and all of that aligning with Nazi Germany against the Soviet Union. I think there's some old hatreds there and some old scores that they're using our boys and girls to fight with, and that is unacceptable to me. And I just think we have to be. If it happens, I want to be known as one of the ones who stood up against it. So that's our job at CDM at the network.
Yeah, I join you in that. Again, that's why I'm searching for what is the strategic objective of this whole approach. I have said it all along that we at least in part provoked this where it is today. We should have known better. This piece of dirt, the Russians for over 1,000 years have protected it as their buffer against invasion from the West. And those that say, well, that never happens, don't like that. People today don't like to know their history because they don't like to know when they're being told they're about to repeat history. And they don't remember names like Napoleon and Hitler when it's against their argument, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's talk about the sanctions. What happens if you sanction China 500% for taking Russian oil? Or what happens? I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, right? I mean, that may be past the red line for them. Who knows? This could cascade out of control. I don't see any strategic reason to answer your question other than the one under some underlying agenda that we don't have full visibility into. And that's what I fear.
Yeah. To get back to the peace issue before we close, Todd, from your perspective, you know this part of the world probably better than most Americans. What conditions could happen for Putin to say, okay, I'll do a ceasefire? We're stopping it as of this moment in time.
He has to get to a line where he has a no fear of an armed Ukraine on his border. So for him, I think one is government change. I think there needs to be a regime change. I think the Ukrainian people would like that, but they won't hold elections. There needs to be some kind of physical buffer zone geography where he feels comfortable that, they can't come in and threaten Kursk again, which is a region of the Russian Federation, which we invaded, American mercenaries along with Ukrainians. And I think there needs to be some way to deal with the fascist issue in West Ukraine. I mean, that exists. It's a thing. I went to a meeting in Kiev a while back, and it was with some gentlemen who were part of the original Constitutional Court. And I was trying to learn about their legal process, and some of their kids walked in, and one of them had walked in with a, wolf's hook on his collar, walks up to me and goes, "White power." I'm like, whoa, I'm not in Kansas anymore. I mean, it does exist. So I think that is a fear of the Russian government as well.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people say that doesn't exist. That's old news.
It exists.
I'm glad.
It exists.
I'm glad you pointed it out. And it's very dangerous that we in the West are supporting that type of ideology because we knew there's reporting that talks about the Azov battalion from before this phase of this war started and how we weren't going to fund that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been funding it for a long time, and I think if you look at what's going on in the EU with the tyranny that's coming out of Brussels and the censorship and the arrests of people for Facebook posts in Germany, and it's all of a piece, right? I think this is a process where they can build a state that's rich in resources and remove some of the threats to that ideology that they're trying to build. I think that's what the EU is becoming. Ukraine is part of that, and we're funding it. So the question is why? Why are we involved as a belligerent? I don't want to be involved as a belligerent. We fought a war against that ideology. So I think we have to just continue calling it out.
We do. Well, before we close, let's just turn to President Trump one more time. My gut instinct tells me this is an attempt, the shifting around here is an attempt to strengthen his hand with Putin to force the peace table events to happen. And that's what I think the president's doing. I don't attribute anything other than that good faith effort to him. But what I'm concerned about is he being manipulated by the Cotton, the Grahams, the security state, that kind of stuff?
I think the answer is yes. I would agree with you. I don't think Trump is a fascist. I think he has the right view of America for our future. I support him. I still support him. I'm trying to give tough love. I'm trying to say that's not what is right. You're being manipulated. And I would agree with you. Keith Kellogg is another one who's over there, rah, 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 war constantly. And, I think Trump's initial instincts were correct. Cut off the weapons. Get rid of the warmongers. Let's have some peace. I think you saw Russia move a bit towards finding a peace solution in the beginning, at least open to it. And I think Zelensky was the one who, went into the Oval Office and berated Trump for peace because he was trying to make peace. So who is the warmonger and who is not? I think Russia's just decided, Trump's just the same as Biden, so we're going to keep going because we have to have a buffer zone or we die. It's very simple.
Well, it's the same crowd of antagonists around him, unfortunately, that have at least the level of access that's needed, from what I can tell. Well, Todd, thank you very much for joining us today. I know this is a tough subject for everybody, but as you just said, we support the president. We want him to succeed in bringing peace and an end to this war. And we need to make sure that we're giving him our advice through the airwaves because that's where we're at. We're not inside the administration. Well, thanks a lot, my friend. I appreciate it.
Enjoy
I
it.
will
Thank you.
see you tomorrow on Training Tuesday. And we're going to continue our series of active duty National Guard and reservists that are being harmed by the continuing punishments of the unlawful COVID vaccine order, unlawful implementation. Yes, it's still happening. Marine officer Skylar Skipper will be with me tomorrow on Training Tuesday. I'll see you then.